I wasn't sure if things would be working today. We had a power outage. It was brief yesterday, like 10 minutes or something like that, 10 or 15 minutes, but it was enough to turn everything off that wasn't on a UPS, which is most stuff. We have a couple of things on UPSs, like these 3D printers and our DM's computer upstairs. But the stuff that, I keep talking about it. I get my studio, my 3 square feet, I guess to be fair, like 3 square feet of cluttered space here is mostly secondhand stuff, sometimes third hand. That is, it's just been passed on as everybody upgrades everything and filters down here. Anyway, forbidden word. Yeah, everything sort of shut down in an unplanned manner, but it came back. It looks like it's working. It says it's live online. The microphone's working. The cameras are working. Okay, then. I'm just going to be doing this, that, and the other thing today. I'm working on painting the stripes on the bottoms of the wings. I got green paint all over everything, so there's that. I've got this needs just the tiniest little bit of touch up. I mean, you probably can't even see it, but when the tape came off, there's this little dot of greenish paint right up near the tip that I don't like being there. I'm going to put a little dot of white paint on that, and then I'm going to mask this here, the bottom. Those are little bits that get attached to other things later. The bottom of this is painted red, and so the horizontal stabilizer attaches. So I need to mask that carefully so that it becomes red on both sides. And then I've got the wing here, which has green, hopefully just there and nowhere else. I'll find out when I unmask this whole thing. Pretty much everything that is masked is going to be unmasked, and the stuff that's unmasked is going to be masked. See how that goes. And then I've got these little struts. As you can see, there's a lot of red paint to paint these little struts. And they're all carefully numbered. I taped over the numbers so that I didn't paint them over. I probably used up all the red paint I need for the wing painting these little guys. But so it goes. They're now red. And they need to be very carefully kept with their numbers because they only go on one way. You don't use these until much later, so I'm not sure. So I'll put them there and a little piece of paper towel over them. And then I need to get on with the fuselage. I've been avoiding that all week. All week last week, I avoided it because of where I put my thumbprint on it that I don't want on it. And so, yeah, that needs to be done. Let me do this little dot of white paint on here to begin with. Leslie is dead to begin with. Famous beginning. Miss Carol. I don't know that it can get much better than that. There's a little bit down here I should try to cover up as well. I think that'll be okay. Problem is, you know, this the solvent in this paint dissolves the paint underneath it, and so that little bit of green what I really need to do, I think, is touch that little bit of green with a little bit of primer. I don't know. Pretty invisible. If I mess with it too much, it'll just make it worse. But there's a little greenish spot right there at the base of the. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to put a touch of primer on that to cover it, and then do the white because there's just enough of it there to be noticeably annoying. I'm going to unmask the wing. See how that turns out. It's just losing its bristles. It really is. I really need to replace these. I was going to go to the local hobby shop and just buy them there, buy local, But never get there. Okay, well, it's just as well because if I have to do touch up on these wings, on the stripes on the wings, then I'll need to do the same thing. I'll need to touch it a little bit with the primer. Having learned my lesson that the solvent in the spray paint, unlike the solvent in the jars and the tubes, those solvents don't dissolve the paint underneath them, but these do. So it becomes a many-step process to fix something that got a little tiny little drip of paint that came under the tape. They feels like a Monday. Here, I'll let you see the pile of debris there. And the trailing edge. Just sand that off. I think I want the green to go away. That's not too bad. Just looking at the line on the leading edge. Tweezers. See, there's a little spot right there where it leaked. And that will require the same sort of touching up that I need to do on the rudder. I'm going to put a little spot of primer on first. I mean, every step is, every time there's a step, there's a danger point, but that needs to happen because as I saw there, the white paint, once if it's used as a touch up, then dissolves the green paint underneath, and then it grows. It's not quite as green, but it's still green. This is coming off. Let's see how this side did. Did okay. It's all red on this side, so I've got just a little spot right there. I get to be off camera for a few moments after I'm done with this to throw all this tape and paper away. On Friday, I got to talk about fallout shelters a lot again. I kind of like talking about fallout shelters. It was a fun time growing up in the 50s and 60s when we seriously talked about how we were going to survive the nuclear war. So as I was thinking about that, what's kind of, there's just this thing about, if you're into UFOs and stuff, people have been talking about UFOs or the equivalent for millennia, really. And there's even claims that get ancient writings like the Bible and hieroglyphics and things like that they describe beings coming from other places, but that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about is, like, after the nuclear weapons started, back in the late 1940s, 45 and all of that, right? There was the famous Roswell incident in 1947, and supposedly there were lots of UFO sightings all over the world in the 1940s and early 50s and stuff that kind of coincided with nuclear weapons tests and stuff like that. So what I want to talk about today is a new conspiracy theory. Okay, I'm sure somebody's already made this up. There's hardly ever anything new. It's the tiniest little bit there in the aileron. I'm not sure I can do anything about that, or should. This isn't too bad. I had trouble with the green, but I've only got this one spot that really needs to be fixed. And I guess that's good. I've got debris everywhere here. To let you know what happened, going to be happening with the wing is that right here is a white stripe. Okay. And so I'm going to mask over this right on the edge there so that the red paint comes right on up to the green. Let's see how well I can do that. And then the white stripe comes like about here, and the wingtip is red. So from here to about here is going to be masked just on the bottom. And then everything else is painted red. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to run out of red paint before that's done, because that's just how things go. But if that happens, then I'll explain what happened and move on to other things. But I think this looks better than the decals would. It's not perfect paint. It's not perfectly done, but it's pretty good, and it doesn't look like it's decal. It looks like it's been painted. Yeah. All of that just turned into a little nubbin like that. How about that? Get rid of this, trying to keep things a little bit cleaned up. Not very much, clean, but just a little bit. That's what it was. Day morning and remembering things when you're old. That's a good combination. I was looking for my coffee mug. Is it thought I had a sheet of paper there that I need sometimes. I have to get one. I just use like printer paper, letter paper or something for when there's large areas to be masked. So I need to do a little touch up on the wing, tiny little spot, and on the rudder. So tiny little spot. And I discovered the hard way, can't put white paint right on it because it dissolves the green underneath and smooshes it around. Smushes it, smears it. The other thing, I found these. I hope these work. They're pretty cool looking clippers. I was starting to paint my figure, my maxi figure, and I discovered that there's this lump on its head right there that needs to come off. I'm thinking these might make most of it go away, and then I can file off the rest. But he really doesn't need to have a giant wart on his forehead. It was taking forever with a file to clean it off, and this is taking off most of it. I don't know where these came from. They were in the toolbox. They're pretty good clippers, like nail clippers, but it's a straight edge at an angle. So I base coated the skin on my head. I need to put a second coat on, don't I? Yeah. So I was wondering if I should touch this up now or later, but since I have to put a second coat on anyway, like on the back of the neck and so on, I think I'll just do that. And I need to put a second coat of yellow paint on the flames. I'm going to do those things now, and then I will come back. I'm just letting this dry a little bit, and then come back and work on those. That's a multi-step process. A little bit of primer, let the primer dry, do the rest of it, let that dry, and then I can do some taping. And then I'll do kind of a catch up to where I am. It's getting closer to the end of this. That is the Savoia. I'm getting closer to being finished with it than certainly closer now than it was when I started. That's a good thing. If after working on something for many, many months, you're closer to finishing now after doing that work than when you started, that's a success. I guess I'll paint the flesh tone first. Do the sword. I'm gonna have to give in and order new brushes on eBay. Because this is getting used up. It's a nice brush. 10-0. I'm gonna get a couple of 10-0s and a 20-0, I think. Or I'll just, I don't know, I guess I can wait. I won't be able to go until like this coming weekend. I've got 2 streams between now and then. I don't think there's a lot of detail painting for that brush. Anyway, I'm going to plug away at this a little bit for a while and do the touching up. I think I had mentioned last week that that was just really stupid. That was a stupid moment. I snipped it off, but I haven't filed it down. And that means that if I had painted it, I would have had to paint it over again. Get this to match up with the area around it. Okay, you can see there's no lump on the forehead here. Well, what I was starting to say before I stopped talking about it, I started talking about UFOs kind of, but this isn't about whether UFOs really exist or not. This is this is like a story, a speculation that I think as I was thinking about it, I just thought this might well I just thought it was kind of amusing. So there's this theory, this speculation, and a lot of science fiction, and even among you know exo specialists who think about civilizations, is the question whether if a civilization becomes advanced, space flight and things of that sort. One of the things that happens is if they get nuclear energy, right? In our case, the first use of that was bombs. Is so it is. So there's a speculation that advanced societies, that there are very relatively few of them because basically they destroy themselves one way or the other. There's lots of ways of destroying your own intelligent species. There's always it's not our fault because this asteroid hit us and we didn't do anything about it because we were quibbling about something, right? But one pretty effective way to destroy your supposedly intelligent species is just nuclear holocaust. Just set off a whole lot of these bombs and destroy all the infrastructure so that if anybody survives at all, they become very primitive again. And then, like in some of the old science fiction things, you've got these remnants of this advanced society that lived in the planet before, and it becomes part of mythology and all of that sort of thing, if anybody survives at all. Yeah, always fun to think about all the mutations and mutants and everything going around. So that kind of an apocalyptic ending is probably fairly common. If you've got atomic energy, why not? And you got bombs. What good is a bomb if you aren't using it? So, if there are if there are some societies out there, very advanced societies with, light speed travel and kind of interstellar travel, not just interplanetary, because there aren't any intelligent creatures in our solar system other than us, but you have to have interstellar travel. If somebody has made it through and didn't destroy themselves and said, well, that's not a fun thing, that'd be bad for business or whatever. Maybe even if there's just like one, it'd be even more fun if there were more than one and they found each other. But, since they have interstellar flight, they find other intelligent life developing. And they know that, and they've seen this over generations. What they've seen is that when you have other intelligent life, more often than not, they just destroy themselves. So as a form of entertainment, this is where I'm going with this, as a form of entertainment, they've gone through the phase of casinos and all of that kind of thing and managed to survive that. Decided that raising animals was cruel because they're all, these are the survivors. They didn't destroy themselves. So what they do now is they have big betting pools when they discover a new emerging civilization, a new sentient species that's starting to show like industrial development and that sort of thing. When they find a new one, they start a betting pool about, and it can be a complicated betting pool. It's not just like, when are they going to destroy themselves? Okay. So there's the timing of it, of course, but it's in what way are they going to destroy themselves? And they can do parlay kinds of things too, where they can bet on when and how and where. But it's a great source of amusement as they go through like a galaxy and they find thousands of, emerging civilizations. Is they amuse themselves by this whole betting thing, wagering on how, when, where, why the civilization is going to destroy itself. So the reason that they come and visit but don't really interact very much is that they're observing so that they can gather information to inform their bets. And also, they want to be there when the self-destruction happens. That's always a cool thing too, is like, watching your team score a goal or something. That's always exciting. It's like, oh, there it is. They blew themselves up with nuclear weapons. Yay! Who won the betting pool? So immediately only those entities that had bet on nuclear weapons, have a chance of winning. Everybody else is out of the running. But then there's bigger payoffs if you got the timing right, or if you bet right about who would use them first and what the level of retaliation would be. So I was thinking, that's what they're doing, and they came along and they visited occasionally. They were kind of interested. There's the plague. The plague could destroy everything. It's not a self-imposed devastation. It's not like blowing yourselves up with nukes, but I'm thinking that that would explain why the interstellar visitors would show up at times of crisis, like during plagues. Um, Even when weapons were ancient, but there weren't very many people around, there was always the chance that, migration or wars or something could intentionally or unintentionally just spread it, like something that could destroy what what was humanity at the time. So you can imagine that, the development of nuclear weapons, which was, a common thing among advanced species, sentient species in their development, the development of nuclear weapons, I'm sure is a fairly common thing. It's like, oh, let's go check this out. This might be the thing, and all the people who were betting on self-annihilation through nuclear weapons, they would come down just to watch it and see if their odds were improving or not. And maybe they would even be lucky enough to witness the event itself. Get bragging rights and cash in, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there as just, a fun thing to think about, is that they weren't here to assist us or give us advanced technology. That would be cheating. Okay. You can be pretty sure that the interstellar visitors did not interfere by giving us advanced technology, unless, because that would be cheating. So I'm not saying it didn't happen. I mean, it could have happened, but boy, that would have ticked off everybody, because they're betting on this. Who knows? They might be probably just, who knows what they're betting, how serious the wagers are. After all, these are the civilizations that didn't destroy themselves. So it's not like, oh, wow, that was good. Like, I've told you before that the biggest oopses are getting the brush to or from the surface. That was a really big getting a brush to the surface. Smashed it into his hand. Good thing that wasn't painted, right? Otherwise, that would have been some major touching up. So yeah, just to remind everybody that what I'm talking about here is the wagering is among the civilizations that have not destroyed themselves, right? That's why they find it so amusing watching all these emerging civilizations and, sentient beings and things betting on how they're going to destroy themselves, because that's usually what happens. So yeah, when nuclear weapons were developed, of course, that would pique a lot of interest among the punters. It's like, whoa, let's check this out. This is getting serious here. Come down to, it's like going to the track and watching horse races or something. It was a big step towards self-destruction, and they wanted to witness it. And then, like the Roswell incident, sometimes, punters, even if you're from a civilization that has avoided self-destruction, right? That doesn't mean that you don't have some bad habits. So I'm going to say that what happened with the Roswell incident is that it was just a group of them that got a little bit too enthusiastic in their celebration of the nuclear testing, and the possibility that they could win the wager about how Homo sapiens was going to destroy itself. That, it was a DUI. Otherwise, otherwise, they didn't want anybody interfering. Of course not. You didn't want interference in some other place there that I need to clean up. Didn't really see it until it started being painted, but there's a blob there at the bottom of that won't look good. It's finished. I'm going to try these. This is probably not a good idea because don't want to get paint all over them. I'll be spending a while cleaning them up, but I'm going to do it anyway. The fastest way to get rid of most of it. But then probably I'm going to speculate that like in the 90s, that I don't know if this is true or not. I'll just make it up. This whole thing is being made up anyway. It's not, none of it's real. Um, this is a work of fiction that I'm spinning here. I'm spinning a yarn of fiction. Maybe somebody can steal the idea and write a short story about it. That would be fun. I'm not going to. I'm not going to take the time to spin a short story. It would be kind of, it'd be an amusing short story. You could do, background character development, and you could talk about, fraud protection and what happens if they violate the prime directive. Keeping in mind it's the same prime directive. You don't interfere. You don't interfere. But it's not because you want to some sort of like altruistic sort of thing about not interfering in the development of a sentient species. Is that you don't want to cheat on the bet. Someone stepping out of their interstellar flying machine and saying, "Hey guys, how would you like some advanced technology?" And then they give them a, anti-gravity super weapon or something, and it just so happens that was their bet, right? There's a lot of opportunity for when you've got wagering going on, for cheating. So probably the most effective, the biggest deal in these civilizations that are wagering on how other emerging civilizations are going to destroy themselves. Okay. Since they're probably relatively peaceful societies and all of that, because they haven't destroyed themselves and are not planning to, is the enforcement of wagering. That's the most serious kind of thing that would be going on in their civilization, is keeping the betting clean. You could write a whole like side story about investigating a ring of cheaters, that kind of thing, how they would cheat. That maybe cheating actually did happen, like in ancient Egypt, or even before that, with the creation of bronze. Who knows? That's Yeah, that's my speculative kind of entertainment story today, is going on about how UFOs are real, but they're not here. They're only here because they're not trying to help us. They're not trying to destroy us. They're just checking in on their bets. It's the only reason they come, and it's kind of entertaining. They buzz around a little bit. They nosh on whatever it is they nosh on. Have a few drinks. Sometimes, like at Roswell, sometimes someone bumps. They just have a little too much, and they crash in the desert. So the ones who bet on nuclear holocaust, and I bet I'm assuming that was a pretty popular bet as it was emerging, because their experience had probably been that once you get up to like a couple thousand nuclear warheads, something's going to happen to set them off, and then it would be just like a chain reaction that creates the nuclear blast. It would just be a chain reaction of, well, I set one, so you have to set one off. You have to set one off. And it just goes until they're all set off, and that's the end of it. So I'm gonna guess that there was a lot of whatever currency is, whatever the thing is that they bet, that a lot of those bets were placed on nuclear holocaust, starting in like the late 1930s, when it became pretty clear that there's going to be a weapon developed. And then after it was used at the end of World War II, even more bets were placed on that. It was like, well, they did it. It's so much for peaceful purposes, but they actually blew these up and destroyed cities with their puny little weapons, and then the other side got theirs. Okay, and I bet the money, the bets just exploded when when the Soviet Union got the bomb and developed the first H bomb. You can just imagine the amount of betting that was going on then. Spending time watching all of that, wagering, and that probably explains why there was a lot of UFO sightings then. I mean, of course there would be, because everybody was thinking, this is a pretty exciting time. They're about ready to blow themselves up. I want to be there when it happens. Of course, you wanted to be there when it happened, right? Who would want to miss that? Would not want to miss that. It's the primer. I did it. I now need to clean it off the brush. Stronger than that. Hope I didn't destroy the little brush. It would make getting a newer one a little more urgent. Cleaned all. Just need to let the primer dry on that. A couple of little dots of white paint, or in this case, even green. Making a mediocre situation worse here, I think. Piling up paint on it. I think with this, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother putting any more white on that. I'm going to declare these wings done, and then I'll probably get around to trying to mask them a little bit later. I'm going to make this piece of cardboard smaller. It's just, it isn't fitting in the box very well. And the same thing with the one where the wing is attached. Got plenty of cardboard. People keep bringing cardboard boxes to the house. You know how that goes, right? I know where the wing is because it's not painted green. I don't need all of this. Get that out, you can see it. I got this little piece of cardboard. It's like, why am I keeping this? I have tons of cardboard. I don't need to keep that. I have this. Why am I doing this? Well, because when I paint the canopy, I'm going to need a little piece of cardboard to put it on. It goes back to when I was a kid. I think I've talked about that. There was this sense of if you use it up, you'll never get it again. And so things just didn't get done. I put model kits together. And they didn't turn out very well. They were all really messy, and there's fingerprints, cement bits all over things. And yeah, they were not good. Paint any of them. The decals were sloppily applied. I'm waiting for this to dry again as I make one more effort to cover up that green spot. Try this. I think that's glossy. That's the problem. Do more than anything is get the green off of that. After I'm done trying to not destroy this, back to talking about interstellar travelers running a gambling ring, because I think that's what they would do. I think that's why they would visit Earth. I'm guessing there was a huge amount of wagering and nuclear Armageddon. I mean, probably given their experience, with other civilizations at a similar stage of development, and the acquisition of just way too many bombs. I mean, there was just a huge number of weapons, right? Belligerent parties. It was the perfect setting. I mean, the perfect situation for nuclear annihilation. And I'm guessing that huge amounts of betting, just massive betting was going on. And most of it was starting to come down to not weather, but the more precise betting. And, it would have come down to a more precise betting about, when, who would start it, how many weapons would be used. Where it was starting to get into incredibly precise bets. And then there was the huge disappointment, of course, in the 90s when it didn't happen. I'm willing to bet. Speaking of betting, I'm willing to bet that there was a big decrease in interest in our particular planet by the interplanetary betters. So, I'm just sure that would have happened. So if you're, following the story, you would have found that a number of alien encounters, reported alien encounters, would have subsided then. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I am. Oh man, wow, that was really bad. Green paint. I didn't I didn't pay attention to where I was aiming. Okay, I'm going to stop messing with this now. I think I've got it. Once this is dried, it will look about as good as it's going to get. And I'm going to do my best to not do anything really stupid again. It was really stupid. I did a stupid thing. I should actually just put lacquer thinner in here because it's the same thing. It's different, just a different type of naked alcohol. But it cleans. It's just more effective as a cleaner. Danger, poison. Nail it. Don't open it in the basement. Don't do any of the things I just did. Okay, well, this is going to be okay once it dries. I'm just going to stop messing with it, and then I'm going to tape it off. Here I can show you here that this raised part here is where the horizontal stabilizer attaches, and so it needs to be painted red along the top. So I'll be putting the tape right along that boundary. So that gets painted red. Like an alligator clip on that. These things are the pegs where it's inserted. Now this isn't perfect, but it's looking okay. Well, the things to be done on the Savoia is tape this so that I can paint the bottom red, and then I can do the assembly of the tail. I need to mask the wing. I'll probably just get on with that, and then go back to the fuselage. So the masking of the wing, I want to cover up the green, but not the white. I want the red right on up to the green. So yeah, this is going to be, I have to be careful about it. Green paint has been drying since Saturday. Anyway, it should be pretty well dried. You don't want to end up with is a little bit of white. I don't want to end up with a tiny bit of white between the red and the green. And so I want to put the tape on. Use my head magnifiers for putting tape on. I want to put the tape on so that it is showing the most infinitesimal bit of green. to not have red on it. Now the problem up front is to cut this off. Here, it's not that. It's I need to mask that right on that edge. Yeah, that wasn't what I was hoping for. I am not thinking this through as well as I should. I've got to. It's that I need. Start. Let's try this again. To do. I should use the little tape. What I'm trying to do is I need to get this edge here. Okay, it needs to be masked across. That's okay. But then I need to get the corner. No, let me mask the other end of it first. I had an amazing little 64th of an inch. I remember this was like 30 seconds short of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eighths. Ooh. Okay, well, I got it absolutely in the perfect place, but I masked the wrong side. That was truly amazingly dumb, wasn't it? Yeah, the thing was that I had to cover up the white, not the part that's going to be red. Uh-huh. So you get to hear the silence of trying to get the tape on accurately. Now the leading edge of the wing, you have this tape on it. I really need good scissors. These could be, but aren't. I had these tiny little toy snippers. I don't know where they went. What to do on the leading edge is tape it right along there and then finish off the corners. I'm going to use the teeny tape. I think that'll give me a little more control. Maybe try it, see what happens. Yeah. And I'm trying to get it I wonder if those things will work. I'm going to try these little clippers. That might, if it clips the tape off, give me a little more precision. Seem to work. This is good practice for the canopy, because the canopy is going to require absurd delicacy of taping. Well, after a million hours, I got to do this corner up here. The other side, which is just as critical. getting the tape right, but the wing tip kind of bends there. It's interesting. And that's where the sprue was attached. And I thought I had gotten it really clean, but apparently not. This is why you can't let people see your model under magnification when you're done. "18 inches away, under relatively dim light." You absolutely have to take my advice on that and just do. Okay. So all of that time took that time to just do that. Need to get this at the right distance. Pretty close. That's pretty good. Leading edge. Once this is done, then I'm going to mask the vertical stabilizer and just get on with that. As good as it gets. It'll be as good as it gets. They're talking about extraterrestrial interstellar visitors basically running a gambling den. And that's what they're doing. Has become their major source of entertainment, is making bets on the specifics of self-destruction among other emerging sentient species because they know that almost always that's what happens. I mean, through experience. And, their odds makers are no fools. They know they're the ones who want to make money on the bets, just like any casino, right? The house, who always wins? The house always wins. Well, a lot of these punters, these interstellar punters, lost a bundle of whatever it is they were betting when we didn't blow ourselves up in the 1960s. I have to say, if you were looking at it from the outside, that would have been a really good bet. I bet they were really, what do they call them, short odds? Yeah, I bet the odds were really short. The house was not given very good odds there, maybe like 3-1 or something, maybe even less. That we would destroy ourselves back in the 1960s because it looked so much like that's what we were going to do. That's probably why there was a lot of reported extraterrestrial activity, because they were all coming down to see it. It's like, oh yeah, there's another civilization destroying itself. Yay, it's great fun watching this. Sure, I'm glad we didn't do that. They're all congratulating themselves on not destroying themselves. So the house made good on that. I mean, they did a tidy profit of whatever it is they were wagering. Who knows? I mean, who can tell? This was an advanced civilization that did not destroy itself. So you don't know what they were betting. some of those, some of them are probably doing okay. There are probably some, the more conservative bettors. There always are conservative bettors. Those would be the ones who said nuclear annihilation, but they didn't specify when or, who was going to set it off or anything like that. It was like taking, when you go to the track, right? Or betting. Say you bet on the favorite. The prohibitive favorite. Everybody else is, say it's horse racing, like the Kentucky Derby, and there's one that's the favorite by a huge amount. Everybody says this is the one that's going to do, and all but two horses kind of withdraw anyway because they know they don't have a chance. And the ones that are left, have never won a race in their life. So it's like you bet on the favorite to show. There's 3 horses in the race, right? And you bet on the favorite to show, which means they have to come in at least third. So your $100 bet is going to make like 5 cents, because the only way the house can win on that is if the favorite doesn't finish the race. And there's this tiny possibility of it, half of 1% or something, which is why you get a nickel back from your $100 bet. So there would be some people, some of these interstellar punters, who would just say nuclear annihilation, but without specifying anything else. It was that kind of bet. It's like, yeah, well, sorry that you're going to really high that's going to win at some point. You don't specify when or which side or how many weapons or any other really specific bets that you could make. There's probably still some of those wagers out there. They haven't been closed because it just says, at some point in the future, this civilization will destroy itself with nukes. And, it just keeps going until it either it happens or not. I don't know if they would put a timeline on it or not. I don't know what the house rules would be. You'll have to guess what they are. It may be like within 1,000 years or something. It's probably all part of the wager. It's the time, the duration of the wager. When does it expire? Okay, well, that's pretty much done. I'll have to make sure that it's nicely pressed down when I actually paint it. But everything that's not taped, the whole top wing and the whole thing here, is going to be painted red, assuming that I've still got enough red paint left. And that will leave us then with a green stripe and a white stripe on the bottom. So that's that. Yeah, we need to tape this. It's the curve there, so We'll deal with that. I would deal with that in a bit. Do it this way because this was supposed to be easier than not. Okay, well, what I managed to do in attempting to fix it is just messed it up. Tape too close to the raised edge there. Before I want this to be right on the edge of the green so that there's an infinitesimal tiny little bit of green showing. White line between the green and the red. Okay, be trimming that off. Well, all that's left is to paint this red, unmask it, and hope for the best. Probably would help if I taped off a little tip at the top here, because then I'll have great. I would have a red point at the top, and that would be really not good. It would be a not good thing. And it's about as good as it's going to get. So there's a bunch of red stuff to be painted red there. I'm going to clean up some of the mess here that I've created over time. Little bits of tape, tweezers, nails, tape envelope. Ruler that I'll put here where I can find it again. I'm never going to remember it's there, am I? Ouch. Ooh, stiff leg. Get stiff leg. Complain about it. Well, this thing turned out to be useful. I think I'm just going to keep it here. And then if somebody else needs it, they'll go, oh, I thought for sure it was in the toolbox. I wonder where it went. And then we'll look all over the place. Probably have to buy 2 more of them to replace the ones that we can't find. That's how that goes, isn't it? And carefully not put something away. So if you're really good at masking things, you would have gotten this done way, way faster than it took me to get it done. But I'm not that good at it. My hands and well, it's just the whole eye-hand coordination, the movement thing is, harder than it might be for others. This has got green paint all over it. I don't particularly want that there. Mm-hmm. I know the wing shouldn't move around very much, but you just never know. In preparation for painting it. Just get a little blob of tape, hold it down, and then after it's painted, I'll flip it over. And I'll do the same thing. This will fly around. It's getting painted red as well, so I can just leave it on here. Put the tape on the tape. And before I spray it, I'm going to, rub down the edges to make sure that the tape is secure. And hopefully there won't be too terribly much messy cleanup afterwards. This I'm just going to leave here for now. That doesn't paint it anymore. Those are already painted. I think, oh yeah, the fuselage. The fuselage that I messed up by dropping it and getting fingerprint on it is still not done. And I spent all last week not looking at it. See what it looks like. Okay, there is still, so what I have is there's a little bit of a flaw there, but there's a little, it's just a change in the gloss right there. And I think the only thing I could possibly do about it is to spray some primer on it. I did this with the horizontal stabilizer. I spray a little primer on it and then repaint it. Then there's this mark here that is being persistent. The thing is, if I spray primer on it, it's going to go all over this. Almost like I'd have to paint the whole thing again, which I could do. This side is shinier than this side anyway, because I put more coats of paint on it. Obviously it is. Look, you can see the gloss difference because there's been more red paint put on this as I tried to fix that. So I need to paint this side anyway. I think what I'm going to do is, in fact, I'm going to spray a little primer on this side. And then I'm going to recoat this on both sides. I mean, it just, the paint buildup made a big gloss difference. It looks shinier than this side. I think the difference there is like it was on the, okay, well, I'm just going to put more paint on this. Especially now that I've seen this side be much more glossy than the other. I'm going to do this painting red anyway. We're going to get done together. There'd be a lot of paint buildup on that, but I think it'll be okay. But especially as I was flipping it over and compared the two sides, it was, oh, geez, okay, I've got an issue here anyway. Now the real issue is, do I have enough of this? This is what I'm, okay. Duh. This is duh. Okay, this is a really dumb thing to do. The way that this happened to begin with is that I had this on a piece of cardboard, but I didn't stick it down. Okay. And so I like tipped it over to see if it was covered or not. And it fell off. But it needs to be painted on this side again anyway. So I am going to spritz it with a little primer, and then probably put two more coats of this red on. But I want to put it on a piece of cardboard. So it doesn't fall on the floor again. This is just going tape on tape. Taped on the bottom. Yeah, it's not painted well up on the top here either. It's actually lighter. And there's even spots. There's spots on there that have hardly any paint. So it needed to be repainted anyway. Oh, I guess it's okay. I just kept putting it off. I probably could have done this ages ago, but I didn't. This is a to be painted box. This is I'm gonna put this whole thing in the done box just as it is. It's, I won't need them. These little struts go on the bottom of the horizontal stabilizer, which is this bit here, and those are the openings into which it goes. Put that in here. One of the last things that's done is that the propeller goes in the front of that. It goes into the engine. Why is there this ridge here though? Is that because of the paint? Well, this just fits in here. But it's not going in. I don't want to force it. I don't want to break something on the inside. Looks like there's like a little ridge on this that needs to be maybe sanded down. I mean, this is something I can do. Is I can put the color on the engine, even though it's like supposed to be the last thing that's to be done. I don't have to wait till the very end. Some people, I mean, some of these, they're contrarians. You know, there's always somebody. It's like I did once. I have to admit this. We were at a casino. I don't really particularly enjoy betting. I think I just find it actually kind of boring. But there's this game called Craps. You roll a pair of dice, and if you get a 7 or an 11, and you have bet on what's called the pass line, you win. Okay. If you get a number other than that, a lot of people don't play this because it seems complicated, but say you get a 5, okay, that becomes your number. And what you want to have happen is you want to have a 5 show up before you get a 7 or an 11. If you get a 7 or an 11 before the 5 shows up, then that particular bet loses. So you're betting on every roll of the dice, and you could have a dozen numbers floating out there if you don't get a 7 or an 11 right away. I mean, you could have every number other than 7 and 11, which means that there would be 10. Um, so usually you bet on the pass line, which means that you expect that to happen. that you'll get that number before the 7 or 11 comes up. Now, that's an interesting thing because, you say you've got a 5 sitting out there and you put another bet down and a 7 comes up, the bet that you placed on the 5 loses. I mean, it just loses because you got a 7, but the 7 wins. So, you have to be keeping track of lots of different bets at the same time and hope that you're not getting cheated or something, right? We were doing that and rolling and winning, and everybody's all excited because we were winning and stuff. And then I put a bet on the don't pass line, and everybody's going, "Don't do that, you'll ruin it." And I did. Okay. Because there was a winner, but the don't pass lost, and everybody grumbled and went away, and that was the end of it. So the point I'm trying to make with this is that with the interstellar traveler betting ring going on, there's always going to be somebody who's going to say they're not going to destroy themselves. Now they do need to put a timeline on that, okay? Because otherwise that bet will go on until they destroy themselves. I mean, if they don't ever destroy themselves, when do you say that you won the bet and they didn't destroy themselves? Maybe it'll be next year. Maybe it'll be next year. Maybe it'll be next year. Maybe it'll be the next moment. Maybe it'll be the very next moment that they'll destroy themselves. So there has to be a timeline on it. But there's always going to be some like curmudgeonly like person like me who's going to put a bet on they're not going to destroy themselves. The house has one thing going to its advantage though, and that is the civilization might be destroyed by some sort of outside force. And you'll have to, I'm going to back up on that. If I were running this casino, so like asteroid strike, right? They could have done something about that if it was a really good advanced civilization, like the one that's placing the bets. That wouldn't have mattered. That wouldn't happen. And so asteroid strike is actually something you could bet on. I was going to say that would be like the 00 on a roulette wheel, where that's how the house wins, because nobody ever bets on a little green spot on the roulette wheel, even though you can. People don't. So, yeah, I think even asteroid strikes, you could say that they self-destructed because, they self-destructed because they failed to stop the asteroid strike, which they should have been able to do if they were really any good as an advanced civilization. Volcanic, I mean, there might be some things, some default things. I'm not sure. We'll have to think about that. There's the engine with the propeller attached. That looks pretty decent. I'm going to rotate a little bit so that it put that back in the done box, and it's even more done now than it was before, in that the propeller is attached. And then those things are just covers that go over the top. They're detachable for access for maintenance. My fingers aren't working well enough. I'm just going to fumble with them. Okay, and those are the floats. Those are the other things. This is the interior. I'll show this off again. This came out really well, I think. The control yoke is there. The instrument panel, you can see the instrument panel looks pretty good with little dials on it. Right. He's got his feet on the rudder pedals. He's slumping in his chair again. There. Inside the canopy are control things like trim tabs and stuff. But this came out pretty well, I think. You can't even see the seams on the fuel tank. I did a good job filling those and sanding them down. The outside, yeah, I mean, the problem is that with the spray paint, I'm really good at the detail stuff like that, like on minifigs, but as you can see with the spray painting, just not so good. It's the spray painting's like an A minus range. This is a solid A, the stuff I've done so far. But some of the spray painting is almost wandering off into B territory. But the fuselage, now that I looked at it again, and now that I know I need to put spray paint on the other side where I didn't put a thumbprint because the gloss isn't the same, because there's less paint on it, well, then there's no kidding around. I'm just going to put a little primer on that one side and then spray the whole thing again a couple of times and hope this holds up. Maybe there'll be enough. If not, then there'll either be an emergency trip to the local game store or emergency eBay thing. But this is actually getting pretty close to being done, which is a dangerous time. I need this red on the bottom here, and then the tail will be done. The wing needs to be painted red and then the stripes hopefully will stay, and the fuselage needs to be touched up again. And then I unmask this, and then I have to touch up the inside of the fuselage because the fuselage lifts off, and so you can see the inside of this, which is nicely painted, wood color with some highlights for the gun ports and the supports for the metal structures that are attached. This rim needs to be painted black. So there's some touchy little things yet to be done. But mostly what I have to do is spray paint stuff red. The other thing is the canopy, the windshield, that also needs to be spray painted red. I'm not ready to tackle that at this point. It's getting too late in the stream to tape that, to do the taping on that. So that'll just have to wait. I've got about like a half hour left. Jeez, nobody joined in on chat today. Might end a little bit early. I'm not sure. I'm going to go back to this guy. I'm going to paint the hair and the beard. I think that's what I'm going to do. Let me see if this brush will work for it. This brush should work. Brush 2. What do these look like? I do need to get more brushes, though. The little bitty ones. Just wearing them out. Color. I'll probably put my head magnifier on for this. That yellow paint on everything, what a mess. No, I didn't get that cleaned up. Yeah, just the thumbnail worked. All right. Be that as it may. Painting his hair kind of light gray. I wonder if there might be another color that's better. Looking at my color chart here. Splotches of paint with a label. Stonewall gray is pretty good. See if that's better than the neutral gray. It's a little lighter. I think I'm going to use that because I'm going to and then wash it with a dark gray wash, and then I'll be able to come back with it and do little highlights on it, maybe. That's assuming I can find the Stonewall gray anyway. Look at that. Right off the bat, so to speak. I didn't have a bat. I wasn't batting anything around, but there it was, right next to the blacks, it was where it should have been. I'm going to use my head magnifier to do the edges, and where the beard meets the skin, where the hair meets the skin. It also has big fuzzy eyebrows, and I need to paint those. And it looks like some tufts on the ears. Why, I don't know. And then I've got this other larger brush that I'm going to use to fill in like the top of it. The rest of the stuff that isn't on the edges. And that'll probably use up almost, if not all, it'll use up what's left of the time for this stream. On Wednesday, I'm hoping that the spray painting will work and I can move this along. Yeah, I need to do some cleaning up again. Every once in a while I clean the workbench. Just come down here and put things away. It takes about 15 minutes to clean it up, but it seems like it's 15 minutes I just never get around to doing. This is going to look really light, but I want the undercoat to be fairly light. I don't want to brush. The tip can't hurt. If I could divide it in half, and it's not supposed to be coherent at the tip. It isn't. The bristles are all divided, which makes it kind of worthless. I mean, the only thing to be done, I could do that. I mean, I just make half the bristles go away. What can go wrong other than that this whole brush it ends up being lost? This is how like Van Gogh went insane, licking the tip of his brush to try to get the bristles to come to a point, and then getting lead poisoning, right? Or Michelangelo, or the poor dial painters during World War II. See if this is salvageable at all. It might just be yet another brush it's lost to the world. By getting rid of half of the bristles, what's remaining of the brush is working okay. Yeah, it's on camera. How about that? It'd be better if it were. Let me move it down a little bit. My head doesn't get in the way. You can see what I'm doing. To decide what to do with his mouth. It's kind of, when in the print, it did not come out well. What do you think? The intergalactic punters. I'm certain that the the vast majority of the bets are nuclear annihilation because all the conditions were right for us to do that and still are. So I'm sure there's still not only outstanding wagers on that happening, but that, every once in a while, people will revisit and put new ones down. We're probably as semi-sentient species, not extremely interesting right now. I mean, we've been sending robots out to visit other planets and stuff like that. I'm sure they're still keeping an eye on us in case we do make some sort of breakthrough in terms of propulsion. I don't think they're going to be terribly worried about that happening. The other thing that managed to get my finger in the paint. I was surprised that happened. The few people who were betting on like asteroid stripe, their odds are getting shorter too because we started to develop ways of intercepting and testing, detecting and intercepting asteroids. So that's probably can't get really good odds on that. You wonder, what about like we're cooking our planet, right? So those of you who believe in it or not doesn't matter. I'm just telling you this is fiction anyway. It's all about aliens, interstellar beings betting on our demise. I mean, nuclear annihilation is pretty cool. They all get to, they're all, that's why they were here in the 50s, you know, in the 60s, as they wanted to see it happen, because that's always exciting when a sentient species destroys themselves by blowing things up. That's kind of fun to watch. Um, you know, it's more fun than like an asteroid strike, which also, you know, gets a big boom and all of that, but it's not like we did it to ourselves. We just failed to prevent it. So it's, you know, it's interesting to watch, but it's not, you know, it's really cool as like, boom, no, you guys blew yourselves up. That's pretty cool. I got it on the flesh tone. Yeah, that's just looking at it from one angle as opposed to the other. So I'll have to do some touch up on that. You know, the climate change thing, though, I have to say that's from an you can tell it's in the last half hour or so of the stream when I can't say interstellar again. From an interstellar punter's point of view, you know, it might be effective. It's like, okay, I win the bet. They did the climate change thing and inundated the shorelines and created mass migration, and then they got into all sorts of wars about mass migration and all that kind of thing. But it's not really fun to watch. You know, it's not sudden like boom, oh look, nuclear winter, few survivors. When do we count as annihilation? You know, there's a band of 15 of them still here. They seem to be hanging on. What are we going to do about that? And there always have to be disputes about, you know, whether the wagers won or not. They probably have like their whole court system is probably like 95% just dealing with bets. You know, did you win the bet or not? And it's casinos or the equivalent of casinos. Right, not to pay out, and others making claims. That's what happens to advanced societies that don't annihilate themselves. They spend all their time, you know, betting on whether other civilizations are going to destroy themselves and how and when, and then dealing with litigation around the issue. Well, I bet there's even, of course, there is, right? There's always meta betting. You know what I mean by that is that, you know, you get into litigation about whether the bet will be paid off or not. Is that there's almost certainly a whole level of betting on the outcome of the litigation. It's a slightly larger brush to fill in the top of the head. To come back with the flesh color paint to do the touching up. I almost could have forgotten, to paint the rest of the head. It would have been silly, but the kind of thing that happens on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeon. So I got all, why does their hair look so funny? It's, I didn't paint the rest of it. I was too busy talking about the gambling, the metagaming, and it would be that way. Okay, it would have to be that there would be a whole metagaming, meta betting on the outcome of litigation related to the payouts of the bets. It's more of a domestic thing, You just do that at home, betting on what the dispute resolution would be. It's not quite the same as the interstellar, how our civilization is going to destroy themselves. But you have to, it isn't all they're going to bet on. The only betting is not whether or how emerging civilizations are going to destroy themselves. Of course, there would be other wagering going on, like the payout, whether or not they would pay out. Okay, that's not too bad. There's some edges, in rotating it that need to be repainted the flesh color because the gray got on it a little too far. So much depends on the angle at which one is looking, right? Did I miss any spots? That it doesn't look terribly good. Okay, the hair, but when a dark gray wash is put on that, it's going to look really pretty nice. The other thing is that its nose is supposed to be darker. I still don't understand why, but furbog noses just are darker. They just are. I'm not going to make it hugely darker. I'm going to make the dark nose subtly darker by using another flesh tone that's just a little darker. It actually looks lighter, but on the color chart, it comes out darker. This little mini fig. You can see that the nose, no, you can't because it's not on camera. There it is. But the nose is darker. Quite a lot darker. Exaggeratedly dark, but this has to darken up quite a lot as it dries, I imagine, because it looks lighter now. Well, if it doesn't come out the way I think it should, use a different color. It's kind of weird. I'm not used to painting a gigantic minifig. See how that looks when it's dry. I don't know how it'll look when it's dry. Oh, it's dry, how it looks when it's dry. I wonder if that gray paint is, speaking of dry enough to, yeah, I'd like to do the touch up on this before the break, so I'm going to do that. Just redoing the line between the gray and the flesh tone with the angle I was working at. Mainly on the back of the beard, along the neck here. Same spot everywhere, the back of the neck and the top of the ears. Very different when I was painting the gray. Too much ear hair here. Okay. After I spray painted red again, unmask things, and hopefully they'll look okay. We'll find out. I'll be continuing to work on my my alter ego here. It is a little dark, but it's not the nose. It's just the difference in shade is not enough to be convincing for bog dark nose. I have to decide what to do about that. Quite sure how to darken the nose. I was hoping that would work. Could look at the color chart, I guess. It's off. Yeah, I'm surprised no one showed up today. It is Monday. I said I would be here. Hopefully the stream is going okay. It says it's been online. I don't know. Maybe nobody will see this. Nobody will see the minimal progress I have made on things. I got a second coat on the flames on the sword, so I'll be painting that. That will be a future thing to do. Be using various shades of orange and red, and I'll probably do the shading on the hair and try to find some other color for the nose, and then working on those bits for the Savoia. Yeah, I'm just going to wrap up now. Just want to remind everybody that Dice and Dungeons is all about the Dungeons and Dragons show. We just streamed on Sunday, so there's another episode on YouTube for you to enjoy. So you can do that if you didn't catch it on Sunday. Yeah, we are really, it's a really good show. It's a really good Dungeons and Dragons show. You should watch it. We have an immensely talented DM who does lots of voice acting and character introductions. The NPCs are amazing that she brings in. Our characters, including me, Will Seth Welch for Bog Fighter, okay, are pretty cool. So it'd be great if you could become a follower on Twitch or a subscriber on YouTube. Please do that. Tell everybody you know how wonderful it is and how they should be enjoying it as well. And I will be back on Wednesday morning at more or less 10, doing a little bit more work on the Savoia. There's just little bits. They'll either most of them won't take a lot of time. They're just unmasking and touching up. At this point, getting it ready for final assembly. The only really big things are to get the fuselage done on the inside and some of the touching up done, and masking the windshield so that can be painted and attached as well. So it's there is the likelihood that it will be finished sometime in the future. Yeah, future. And I'll show you the stuff in the done box again, just so you can see that a lot of progress has been made. I will be going away again in a couple of weeks, and so I want to get as much done, maybe even finish the Savoia if it's at all possible. I'd love to get that done before I go on another excursion. But keep an eye out. Be working on that. And I think I'm going to be working on the control panel decals or stickers for the Apollo stack so that I can finish the command module and I can show you that. It's been a long time that hasn't been done, and there's just little bits of it that need yet to be finished. Yeah. So thanks, everybody. That's sort of a preview of what will be happening in the next week or so. And I will be back on Wednesday, hopefully with great success on red painted stuff on the Savoia, and that it will then be ready to go. Thanks all. See you then. Have a good day. Be back again Wednesday at about 10.